This edition of the Z-Files is on the road, actually on the railroad, here in Milton, Florida, almost at Baghdad. And we're here next to the CSX railroad tracks. Once these were the L&N railroad tracks, and way back in the 1880s, this was the P&A railroad line. And Milton had existed since 1844. So when they began to build a railroad from Pensacola to the Atlantic Ocean, that was the P&A. Colonel W.D. Shipley, who was the president of the L&N, or part of that operations, along with other people, laid down with their crews working the railroad line, which also goes through Okaloosa County and Walton County, all the way through Tallahassee, all the way to Jacksonville, and of course connected with other rail lines that would go north, mostly from this line of railroad tracks here. The West Florida Railroad Museum is where I'm at, and behind me you can see an L&N dining car. Later in this video tour, I'll show you the inside of that dining car. Right now, it's set up for performances by the Milton High School Drama Group doing the Polar Express story for the kids and the families to come enjoy. The Railroad Museum actually is open and have a special display of trains, Lionel trains. They've got HO gauge, they've got Garden, the G gauge, all on display, and train rides. And you can even bring the kids over to ride a train over here. So you've got 2 weekends left to do that, depending on when you're watching or hearing this. They're open Friday and Saturday, Christmas weekend, from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. And then on New Year's weekend, they'll have special hours, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., with special displays of some model trains set up for you to see. You can talk to some of the people who are operating these trains, who have it as a hobby. Many of these people have a large collection of personal engines and rolling stock, which is the phrase for the box cars and for the cabooses that they have. And speaking of cabooses, there's one here we're going to take you into in a few minutes and let you see what it's like and where you would have lived and worked had you been a conductor on the railroad back in those days. So again, I want to remind you, if you want to see some great railroad artifacts, see some model trains in operation, learn more about the railroad history and model trains of all different kinds, you want to come to this depot here on Henry Street. If you get off at the Baghdad exit, number 26 on I-10, just come north about 4 miles and you'll cross the tracks and you'll be right here. If you're off of Highway 90 and if you're coming down from Alabama to come here, then just come down to Highway 90, go to the traffic light where the Masonic Lodge is, the big 2-story lodge building, and come south about 4 or 5 blocks and you'll be right here. So with that said, we're going to get you out here and get you on the tour. Randy, could you imagine traveling in this as a traveling home you'd live in?
Well, I mean, it certainly doesn't have the luxuries that we have today, but it'd be comfortable. You know, if you could get a nice television over here, and so the chair looks comfortable. So, but yeah, I guess it wouldn't be so bad if you weren't used to the comforts of home.
And of course, it's open every Friday and Saturday from 10 to 3. It's in Milton. It's actually, if you get off at the Baghdad exit where the Dairy Queen is, where I get my ice cream cones,
yeah.
But at exit 26 and just come north a little over 3 miles, you'll be right here, because you'll cross the tracks and be right here where this depot is. And we're going to tour this because they're having a special Lionel Christmas holiday weekends now through the end of the year. So if you're seeing this on our Z-Files channel or on the our Facebook page, you'll see us. We're going to take you around and show you all the things that are here and get you interested in. I'm sure the kids will want to bring you, and I guess kids of all ages up to 80 or 90 who like trains. A lot of people grew up loving trains. And we had a whole crowd down by the tracks a while ago when a train came through, a very unusual train. It had nothing but these flat cars, you know, with chains that would hook things down, and it had the letters DODX on the side.
What do you assume that
And
means?
Tom Moody, who is one of the members of the museum, said that's military stuff. They would. So I got to thinking, wherever it's going and going to stop and let all those cars be, somebody's either going to be happy or unhappy. It looks like they're going to load up a whole lot of stuff somewhere on there. They could put tanks or trucks or the big vehicles that they use nowadays in the war world. But anyway, we're not far from the trestle. In fact, I was just looking. Before I'm through with this program, I'm going to walk down there and hopefully catch it when some sailboat comes in and needs to have that thing turn.
Oh, it's pretty neat.
And then so
really
that,
is neat.
And it's right down by the waterfront, of course, as well as downtown. But right now you can come over here on Friday or Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can walk through this caboose and see all the other things that are here on display that you're going to see on this edition of the Z-Files on the road. And of course, this taller guy next to me, he's a almost basketball player height, I think, but he does run a sports radio station on 1490 Fox Sports Radio here in Milton. And this is Ella, and she's
kind of shy.
She's a little bit shy, but she celebrated having one little tooth come out last night. You may see her in this, and I'm sure you'll see her smiling when we get back to the garden trains and the train ride, because she'll like that.
Yeah, we look forward to that. This is close by and a great place to bring the kids, and kids just love it, and they love being able to play around on the trains, and certainly can't hurt them. They've been here all these years for a reason, so we're looking forward to a fun day.
We're in the HO train display here at the West Florida Railroad Museum, and we've got a fellow that's both of these guys are railroad buffs, so you have to be if you like model trains. Tell our people who your name and where you're from.
Alf Erickson from Molino, and I've driving trains since the 40s. I had the Lionel sets, and then I moved going to the clubs up north, and then I came down here. Came for a visit to see, and they said I had openings for membership, so I joined it.
Okay.
And then I went across the street, and I joined the G scale also.
Okay.
And here we are after 4 or 5 years.
Oh, good. Well, in here, of course, we've got a very large layout and great display that this model railroad club has, and of course they do have members. And I gather if somebody has a real deep interest, they can do just like you've done here, Doug, is become a member.
Right. It's only $30 a year for dues, which includes a membership in the museum.
Okay.
Once you join, if you have model trains, you're welcome to come down and run your trains.
Right. So if you want to play with trains and your wife won't let you do it in the kitchen or out in the garage, well, you come down here and got a big display to run.
Right. A lot of people start out with a 4x8 sheet of plywood or on the kitchen table, and it grows from there.
I think I remember when I was a kid, I had this 027 gauge Lionel set, and we only brought it out at Christmas time. And the poor little thing only got to run around the Christmas tree. That was it.
We had in our bedroom. We had a table set up in our bedroom. We had to sleep underneath the table to sleep at night. So the train's running over me at nighttime.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got a friend up in Tennessee that his whole attic level of his house, which is big, the whole size of the house is a great big train, about something bigger than this room even, I guess. This special Lionel Christmas weekend that's going on is really the weekend that I'm doing this. I'm here on Saturday the 17th. So then next 2 weekends, on Friday and Saturday, from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m., the museum is open. It's free attendance. You come on down and they'll kind of tell you where everything is. And if you want to live up some memories from way back when in your days as a kid with model trains or the big trains, you can go through the old box cars that are sitting out and you look at those. And of course we got a red caboose, and you can go inside the caboose and see where the guys actually worked. I was amazed. I opened up one door and I said, oh, I can see that. Well, there's a generator with pulley bolts, belts on it. So gosh, that's how they ran DC power to light up all the lights and the communication stuff. That was a whole DC voltage system out there in that caboose.
Yes, I know. It was really the way how they had it in the old days. They had the old potbelly stove and everything else, trying to keep themselves warm and to cook the little coffee pot or whatever they had to do in the cold winter times in the old days.
Living the way it was. So we're going to keep on our Z-Files tour and check out some of the other rooms here at the West Florida Railroad Museum. Now, if you're coming from Okaloosa County, come west to exit 26 and just go north about not quite 4 miles, and you'll come through the little town of Baghdad and all some of those pretty old houses. And then just as you come to the railroad tracks, you'll find where the museum is here, and you'd want to stop and check it out and do it. Now, if you're coming from Pensacola, same thing. Get off at exit 26, come north about 4 miles. That's the easier way to get here. Now, if you live north of Alabama, come down 87 or 89, maybe to Milton, and then you just take the exit that is the second traffic light after you come off of the Blackwater River Bridge, and you go south toward I-10. You'll see signs for that as you're going toward Baghdad. That'll get you here as well. Or you can just look it up by going to the WFRM.org for their website, and I'll have that on the screen to remind you where that is as well. So we're going to relocate our camera and see if we can find out some more things and talk to some more people who are having fun here at the museum today. As we continue our tourist tour of the West Florida Railroad Museum, we're going to chat with a gentleman who is involved with the garden train scale operation. And as you heard us a while ago talking with the guys up on the HO scale, there's a lot of different sizes that are real small. When I grew up as a little boy, the Lionel I had in the 40s was a 027 gauge, and we only got to play with it at Christmas time around the tree. That was the way Mama and Daddy said we had to do it.
And I got to do mine in the 50s all year long.
All year long.
So I've been doing trains since the 50s.
Okay.
And here at the Railroad Museum, we have the depot building that's 107 years old, and that's the freight house and all the artifacts we've got from L&N and Frisco railroads. So it's a historical museum, and we have a baggage room, waiting room, and a ticket office you can look at and hear the telegraph going. And then up front we got the gift shop with some hobby trains in there. We have 2 cabooses you can go through, the dining car that we've refurbished from its last vestige on the CSX Railroad as a work train, and we rent that out for birthday parties. It seats 36, air conditioned and heated all year long with a full kitchen. So it works real good. We've had a Thanksgiving dinner in there and the Red Hat ladies and lots of birthday parties.
Well, I know some folks from Crestview who have come over here for birthday parties, and I think one of the theater groups is doing the Polar Ice event in there, right?
That's the Milton High School Drama Club.
Drama Club, fantastic.
It's a kind of like a Polar Express, but not exactly. And it's a story time and hot chocolate and some other things, I think.
Okay.
And then here at the Garden Railway, we started the Garden Club in 2003 and started building the Garden Railway in 2007 on weekends, and then we had it ready October of 2009 for the centennial of the museum, and have been working every Friday and Saturday ever since.
And of course the members bring their own trains, and you'll see them going by in the background on this video. Is this the largest size of the model trains, the garden size?
No, there are many sizes. This Garden Railways is what we have here. It's typically 1/29th scale, but it can go from 1/20th to 1/32nd, so stuff looks different on the rails. Below that is O gauge, which is the one you're familiar with, and that's 1/48th usually, and then the HO is 1/87th, and N scale is 1/160th. And there's one smaller called Z gauge.
Wow.
And then going up from G gauge, there's standard gauge, which is what your dad would have had in the 20s and 30s. It's 3-rail, made by Lionel before they made O gauge, and it's just a little larger than this. Then there is a 4 3/4 inch gauge, 7.5 inch gauge like we got here, and then variations along that across the country.
So if somebody would like to, they see this and maybe they come out, I'm sure you always get questions, well, how can I do this myself? How can they?
Just get started with the set.
Okay.
Come out to the museum right now during the month of December, and we have the O gauge trains running in the freight house, and you can talk with the operators there and see how they set it up, what it takes, what do you need. The gift shop can order some stuff for you, or you can go to a hobby shop in town, and then it's just get in and start doing it. O gauge is great for kids to get started with because it's dependable, reliable, and easy to work with wiring-wise. And the equipment is pretty robust. Lionel equipment, as you remember, was almost indestructible.
Yeah.
And now that things like today, Williams, K-Line, and Lionel are the O-gauge manufacturers, the primary ones.
Right. Well, the system that I had when I went to college in 1956 went to a cousin, and right now that cousin's got a grandkid who still has that train set, still running it.
That's a family heirloom, and hang on to it.
Yeah,
That's important.
That was a post-World War II, or right about the end of World War II, when that one that I got came out that we got.
They were very popular then.
Yeah.
My dad had an O-gauge, and I got that one Christmas. And then he got an HO train, and the O-gauge went to one of my brothers, and so it passed through the family, and then it came back to me eventually.
Okay. Well, then what is there a gauge size for the one that you let people, the kids get to ride in?
The riding train we have here is 7.5-inch gauges. That's 7.5 inches between the rails.
Okay.
And what we have here is a locomotive and 4 gondolas for the kids to ride in, and a caboose that was hand built by one of our museum members. And it's powered by a diesel, that's gasoline powered engine. In the museum we have what used to run over here is a live steam locomotive. Wow. And it would run on coal, and took 3 hours to steam it up so it would operate, and then it would took 3 days to cool down before you could touch it.
Oh my goodness.
But that doesn't run anymore. It needs to be overhauled and recertified, and we don't have that capability yet.
I understand it. But of course it takes a lot of funds. Mostly your revenue is from what people donate when they come here, or maybe spend in the gift shop, and then a little bit of what your memberships for the two. But you've got a HO gauge or the smaller scale
That's
club, and you have a club here for the garden club.
We have the 2 clubs, and then we have other museum members who participate that are not belonging to either club.
Mm-hmm. But they just like trains, want to keep supporting this piece of history.
Yes. And when the trains come by on the CSX main line, don't stand in the way, because everybody's headed for the tracks.
We had a unique one go by this morning that had a whole bunch of Department of Defense flatbeds being pulled by a pair of CSX engines.
Did they have loads on them?
They were all empty. So I said to Mr. Moody, I said, you know, somewhere where that train's going to stop, it's either going to be somebody happy or unhappy, because they're going to load up some stuff at some place and haul it to the military, or they're going to move some stuff from somewhere. There was more than 50, but less than 100 was what we estimated in those cars.
What direction was it headed?
We're going that way.
Then it's headed to Jacksonville to pick up probably military equipment coming out of the Middle East, and go back to the units and depots to be rehabbed and fixed back up.
Great. And of course I want to catch some video sometime today of that bridge out there making its turn. I don't know if I asked Mr. Moody, he wasn't sure how many of those kind of bridges might still be in existence in Florida where there's a bridge tender there at the bridge.
He would be the most knowledgeable of the numbers. We used to have 2 here in this area, one on Blackwater River is still there, and one in the middle of Escambia Bay. Right. But when they built that tall bridge, we got the bridge tenders building.
That's right, over there.
And that has the permanent HO layout. Right. And how many other places there are? The one in Mobile was not a manned all the time swing bridge that they had the accident at. And there are others across the country because they can't put in a high bridge over everything.
Right, yeah. You get the train up that high and back down is quite
a long ways.
It really does. Well, listen, I know you're going to get back to, we got people getting loaded up in the train, and I think you want to give them a ride, so we appreciate the time, and we hope people will come over here, especially the weekend of Christmas and the weekend of New Year's. They'll be open through those weekends, and I think are you going to be open on Christmas Day or just on the Friday Saturdays? We
will not be open at the Railroad Museum on Christmas Day. Usually we're open all the rest of the year, Fridays and Saturdays. Right. But I'm doing Niceville Animation in Motion, which is a very large Christmas lights display, over 29,000 square feet of display space, and I have 21 garden trains running inside, and there were 10 other trains sprinkled throughout the building for a total of 31 trains operating.
I know the Christmas lady very well in her displays. She outgrew her neighborhood to where she's got a much bigger permanent building, and we're going to make a visit out there and let people see that also as a place to go this Christmas season.
By all means, come out and have some fun.
As we're touring the West Florida Railroad Museum, and we're back here in the garden train area, we find a fellow who likes trains like a lot of us kids that just don't want to grow up when it comes to trains. Bob Cole is a county commissioner and has been, I understand, for quite a few years over here.
Yeah, we got 14 years in on the board, so, and District number 2, but I always enjoy coming down here and watching the trains, bringing grandchildren down here. It's just a great time, so anybody that's in that mood, just come on down.
Well, of course, they're doing this special thing. That's why we're out here doing it. So our Z-Files readers and viewers and radio listeners all combined know that this is a great thing you can come to for the next 2 weekends before the end of the year. You got the Christmas weekend, Friday and Saturday, 10 to 3 both days, and then the New Year's weekend, Friday and Saturday, 10 to 3. And you just bring the kids of any age and let them see the trains, the models. And as far as your own model train stuff, what kind of stuff do you have?
Well, I have mostly O-gauge, the old Lionel,
okay,
and I'm authorized Lionel repair service. I'm service station number 120, so
wow.
just it's a hobby type thing, enjoy it. And I've been exposed to toy trains and real trains all my life. As a child, we lived near a railroad in Pennsylvania, and Dad would always, we'd wake up Christmas morning to trains under the Christmas tree. So that when you get that instilled in you as a young child, it sticks with you the rest of your life. So.
Right. Well, I remember my first was one of those little red engine Lionels. I guess it was 027, does that sound like the right number? Yeah, okay. And it, again, only got out and put around the Christmas tree. Yeah. Didn't get to play with it the rest of the year. And when I graduated high school in 1956, that went to a cousin. And the last time I talked to him, his grandchild has it now. So it's still running right now here in 2016.
They built just like all American stuff. They built to last. So, and if anybody's interested too, if you don't mind me mentioning, the L&N Depot, the museum here, is all volunteers. So if you have a heart for railroading and model railroads or the L&N, anything that has to do with trains, we're always looking for new members and people to come on board with us and help us take care of the facility, operate the facility. So it's open to new membership.
Yeah, I just talked to one of your new members, Doug, up in the HO room, and he said he's just been with it 2 months and having fun.
Yeah, it's a great group of guys. We're just, it's like anything though, unless you get new people involved, it gets stale for everybody to do all the heavy lifting. So we need some young folks in here to keep things going and pass it on to the next generation. So.
Right. When I first came over here, shortly after the garden club was, I guess, open, and I then talked to a guy named Orlando, one of your club members, and he was involved in like a lot of were in that. And George had told me that really when the railroad when L&N decided they were going to discontinue needing depots, some of the towns along the line were smart and they managed to speak up. And I think you had a preacher of some kind that got involved and a bunch of others in the community and got this saved and got it into as part of your historic property for the county.
We did, and then later the state gave us a grant. We had a gentleman, last name was May, that restored the building for us, and then after Ivan, it tore the roof off. We got a new roof on it, so the facility's in good shape. For as old as the depot is, it's in great condition, but we got to keep it that way. And it takes maintenance to do that and operate these trains. And you come down here and volunteer and watch the smile on these children's faces. It makes it all worth it.
Oh, it does. I know when Randy and I were on the Amtrak train they did earlier this year, we were up in the observation car doing interviews with all the the mayors and the council members who were up there, and we looked down. We had to stop here. The Congress lady from Jacksonville got so busy talking in Pensacola, she didn't get on when the train left, so they brought her here to get on. And we said, there's some scraping and painting work needed on the roof with a couple of those cars, the dining cars, but that's a never-ending job.
Yeah, well, they're exposed to the weather 24/7, so they have to be maintained and refurbished, and paint doesn't stay on them very well with the sun and all the weathering on them 24/7. So, but I remember that stop. Mayor Weiss and myself were on board, and actually we got off the train and back on, so we could officially say we boarded the Amtrak train in Milton at the station. So that was a great day that day. So we got off in your city, up in Crestview, and enjoyed the ride up there. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, from Pensacola to Crestview is probably the prettiest part of the route. From from there, from on to Tallahassee and Jacksonville, it's pretty much just piney woods. So I think we're coming around the bay and through Milton and up through the woods in Crestview. I think we have the prettiest part of the route. So.
Right. Well, I know I've told people in some of my talks about some of our railroad history that I've learned since I moved to the area, that when Colonel Chipley and his other surveyors were heading east and they got out of the Milton area, they could have angled over toward Baker, where there already was a little town, because Crestview didn't exist yet. But fortunately they didn't, so now there is. Otherwise there never would have been a Crestview.
Well, we're glad it's there. It's a nice town. Sheila and I enjoy going up there. My wife's family's all from Dorcas area, and she remembers her grandmother taking her shopping in the big city of Crestview.
Right.
So, but
at one time there was a train stop in Dorcas in those early days, and of course the Yellow River Railroad, as you go north on 85, you'll see sections of the red clay still there from the old roadbed, and then that section right in town, which has got Industrial Drive, it's called now. And we had a mayor who was in office who was going to he got a state grant, and he wanted to make it a walking bicycle path, the old railroad line from 90 all the way out to Airport Road, I guess. Another former mayor decided he didn't want to do that. He ran for mayor, got reelected, and now there's thousands of jobs along there, and fixing to be a couple of thousand more, because there's going to be a new Publix and a new super Walmart super center and all the other things. So there'll be, along that old railroad line, there'll be a lot of people working and shopping.
Well, that's important. We did something similar here. We did turn a route into the biking trail, and that's the line that went out to Whiting Field, the spur that went out there to service Whiting Field. Right. And that was turned into a rails to trails, and it's enjoyed by quite a few people.
Well, that's good. And of course you got the little walking trail on Old Highway 1, the brick road out there on the east side of town.
And we just had some folks in town from Texas that give us recognition for that, so it was quite enjoyable. I told them they need to look into it, because Santa Rosa County may have the longest section of the old brick road.
Could be.
Because there's quite a bit, I think a couple, 2 or 3 miles of it. So. So we enjoy a lot of great history here in Santa Rosa County, along with Okaloosa County and Escambia. There's a lot of great history in the northwest Florida area. So.
Well, the folks of Santa Rosa and part of Walton even gave up some territory to make Okaloosa back in 1915. But if somebody wants to get out here and get involved, I guess they could just come out here on a Friday or a Saturday and talk to anybody here who's working and volunteering, and they can become a member and a volunteer.
Absolutely. We'd enjoy having you. So enjoy having more people come out.
So. Commissioner, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
This is an L&N caboose. You don't see cabooses on the trains running on the railroad tracks anymore. I guess they decided they didn't really need those and didn't need to have the conductor back out here at the end of the train as they did in the old days. And you can come see it too. We're at the end of the cabooses are always at the end of the train, so we'll call this the end of this particular Z-Files. Again, with the reminder that this famous historic depot, which is almost 109 years old, is open this weekend and every weekend of the year on Fridays and Saturdays 10 until 3. Now, the last weekend, the Christmas weekend and New Year's weekend, they're inviting you to come on over and see some model trains operating. They've got some of the Lionel trains. They've got in one building, which has got a lot of history to it, you will see they've got a beautiful HO display. And then in another area, they've got what's called a garden train. These are larger train engines that a lot of their members and volunteers built the layout for the tracks. And of course, there's a train ride, an L&N little car pulling some extra little cars that the kids can sit in for a free train ride. So you're more than encouraged to come over and check it out if you're looking for something for the holiday weekends to do with your family.